Okay, we're up to episode 8 here, and I wanted to show you, and please no mean comments from the body guys out there. I know you can do better than I can. I'm just going to add another layer of this compound, and all I'm trying to do here is hide that old weld repair once it's painted so it looks good, because it's on the top of the head. Put this on here. Scrape this off. Got a little dried chunk in there. Get a little bit right here in this dead spot. Once that gets sanded off, that should look pretty decent once it's painted. Get off my little spatula here. Why I bother, these things are so expensive at 59 cents a piece, but I do reuse them a couple of times. Okay, we'll put that away. And something else I wanted to show you, let me zoom the camera in here a little bit. Okay, something on Fuller Johnson's that they have these oil holes for the valve guides. And let's see, they're right. I'm going to pick the camera up, so if this shakes, I'm sorry. They're right there. And I've already cleaned the intake out, but I haven't cleaned the exhaust out. And I just want to show you, I keep forgetting to do this. When you're running these engines, it's really important to keep a little bit of oil in there and keep those cleaned out. Now when I paint this, I'll put a piece of wire down in there so the holes don't get plugged up with paint, because I've had that happen before too. I speak from experience. So we'll set the camera back down here. Back up just a little bit. Okay, so we're done with that. That'll have to cure overnight, or in this case, since it's Sunday, till next weekend, because I usually don't get much done out here during the week. We'll set this head up here where it's out of the way. And see, I'm going to clean up. I have some other stuff to show you. I've been out here for about an hour, taking measurements, so I can do some machine work, and I wanted to show you some of that. Let me clean this cardboard off here. All I have to do is find my notebook. There it is. Anyway, I don't know how well you'll be able to see this, but what I had to do was take measurements. Bring that in closer so you can see it. There we go. I had to take measurements to draw myself a little diagram. The diameter of the valve, the length of the threads. This happens to be the exhaust valve. The thread diameter, what I'm going to ream the valve guide out to. This is 7/16. It's going to go to 29/64. My reamer set is English. I don't do enough of it to justify spending, you know, 80 to 100 bucks on a reamer. So that was the exhaust valve, and here's the guide, the plan for the guide for it. Did all the measurements on that. Just to show you some of what I did. bring the valve out here and bring out the micrometer. This is the old valve we're going to go ahead and replace. I think I moved that. I did. Okay, that measurement is 4. Oh, what is that? 428 is what that measures right there. Anyway, I've measured it out. That's 7/16. We took measurements of the valve head itself, the length, the threads. We also did, and I wanted to show you this, is we took measurements of our old push rod that we're going to replace. And if you remember right, this piece right here, we were broken off in there. And I wanted to get an exact diameter because I'm going to have to order an end mill or flat bottom drill bit to get that hole cleaned out to make this work properly. And I got out my plug gauges, which I normally use for work with revolvers, which is why I bought them, which is why a lot of these have never been opened. This is a set sold by Enco. I believe that's where I got it. It's an import set. It runs from 1/4 inch to 1/2 inch, which works fine for revolvers. That happened to work really well in this case. We took, let's see, it ended up being the .444. Let's see if I can get that in there so you can see it. I don't think it's going to show up. It says .444 on there, and that ended up being our diameter. .445 is just a little bit too tight, so we're going to go with the 444. So I'll have to order a bit to fix that up. And then on my valve guide reamers that I'm making, or my valve guides for the reamers, I had another issue I had to contend with. And I'll get out one of the reamers, and I'll get an old valve guide and show you. This isn't the right size, but you'll get the idea. If you look at that reamer, the shaft is smaller than the reamer head, and the depth I'm going to be reaming, this is going to stick up into my reamer guide a little bit. So I've got to actually make my reamer guide 2 different diameters when I make it. So I'm going to get the lathe fired up a little later today, and I'll get everything set up and show you what I'm making. I'm going to make these a little longer on this one just because of these reamers that I have. Again, they're imports, they're nothing fancy, but for what I do, they'll be sufficient. I think that's all I've got for you right now. You know, again, most of you who are watching this probably know how to use every one of these tools, so I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on it. You know, snap gauges, micrometers, calipers, and thread gauges are all pretty much standard. So that's what I've been up to this morning, and I still haven't got the flywheel off this silly thing. I did get it to start moving, and then it stopped again, so I don't want to break it. So it's sitting with penetrating oil, PB blaster, and I've run 2 torches empty trying to heat it up. So I will get it off of there eventually, just a matter of being persistent. So I'll get everything set up, and we'll move over to the lathe in a little while.